Hello and welcome to the third and final instalment of this Build With Me series, where I build the 3 Sarissa MDF houses. It's been a lot of fun doing this. This edit has taken a little bit of time to reach as other projects have taken priority over it, but it's good to finally get to it. So I will stop rambling now. I will hand back to past Beard and see you again at the end of the video.
Next up, I have to wood stain the roof of the woodshed on this miniature, which will take me a very short amount of time, so I will just do that while you're watching. It's been quite a long time since I've got back to this. I've had a very limited amount of hobby time in the last couple of days for various reasons. I've been spending some time on tourney, getting a few things done. I've got a big tournament coming up in Australia. Thank you, Lucky, from Zob with his Ardour Unleashed. That's happening very shortly. And so I've been spending a bit of time just tidying up a few things and improving some of the flows, which is also part of my hobby, I suppose. So you can't argue with that. But it does mean that getting time on these models has proven to be quite difficult. So there we are. I'll do another coat of that another time and finish that off this evening. But that's the next step on this Sarissa building. Next up, I'm going to be looking at removing this door. Now this is an idea that's come to be late. As I've said, I've got some horses and I would like to have this done as a stable door. Now I have got the correct blade somewhere, but can't find it. Typical. So I'll probably find it as soon as I finish this. So I'm going to have to do something a little bit more awkward, which is to use a non-correct blade and kind of saw away at it until it comes out, which is not really ideal. So I'm going to have to do something like this. And what I'm going to do, this is something I would have done anyway, is I'm going to take the entire door out and then I'm going to recreate an entirely new door, which out of whatever materials I decide to do, which will be half of the door, a proper stable door. So I'm going to carry on with this. Not ideal. Should really have done this very much easier if I'd have removed this door before making the building. But on this channel I show you everything, including the mistakes I make, so that hopefully you can think ahead and plan and not make the same mistakes. Doing this with the correct tool would also be much easier, and it may be that I have to just give up on this. There are only 4 tabs holding this door in place, and these knives are quite sharp, but ideally I'd be doing this with a saw blade. Hey, success. There we are. Easy. With my thumb, easy. Now I want to talk about floors. I have a couple of these buildings and another one here, which is just out of shot, mostly. And I'm doing quite well on the outside, on the exterior, but I've not really done very much to the interior, which looks a bit rubbish. Now, the interior isn't a huge problem for most people, but for me, I'm a completionist. So what I have is 2 options here. Well, one of them is some herringbone pattern that I've just printed out, which is going to be perfect for going inside this building over here. The other one is a sheet that I got from Sarissa, which contains some mosaic floors, and I'm going to put those mosaics inside this one. Either that or the other building with the dark red. And I will be doing some more searches. I found that herringbone pattern on Google and it's okay. I'll be doing some more image searches and looking to print out some more types of flooring, and I will be using them on all of these models. So that's my plan for today. As I push towards finishing these, I have painted the inside of all of these Sarissa buildings with my MDF sealant. And now that that's gone off, in preparation for putting the floors in, before they do the floors, which are going to be the printed things I showed earlier, I'm going to paint the walls. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to paint them white first, and then I'll pick a colour. The white will seal off and hide any of the wood, and I'll do this before doing the floors so that I don't have any overspill onto the nice printed patterns. So I have some just normal white paint that's from a craft shop, actually from a Belgian supermarket as it happens. And I'm just going to paint this on all the walls. I'll probably do 2 coats, and it will make this, finish this off a little bit nicer. So I think I'm going to turn the camera off because I need to be able to manoeuvre this. As you can see, it's a bit awkward trying to keep this in shot. And when I am done, I will show you what it looks like. I have made some good progress painting the interiors of the Sarissa MDF buildings. I've done 1 coat on each model and just done that with white, as you can see. So there's the 3 models, and they're all 3 buildings, and they've all got their white on the insides. I'll be doing another coat at some point, maybe later on today or maybe another day, but for now that's good enough. I'm going to get on with something else. This will mean that when I've finished doing this white, I can pick a colour for each room, and then I'll be able to, when I've done that, I'll be able to do the flooring inside. Next on these Sarissa buildings, I'm going to talk about chimneys and fireplaces. Now this is a bit of a hot topic on the GBHL at the moment. That's the Great British Hobbit League Facebook group, if you weren't aware of that. Talking about the amazing new model buildings terrain that Games Workshop has just released for Rohan. Now, as brilliant as they are, and they really are brilliant, none of them come with any chimneys or any fireplaces. Now, not every building in a poor country has a fireplace. However, I think most of them would have something or other, even if it's just a hole in the roof with a flap. And one of the issues with these Sarissa buildings is there's no fireplace and there's no chimney on the roof either. Now, I have done a fair bit of scratch building in my time, and one of the things I really enjoy and one of the things I really do a lot of is putting in the fireplaces. So you're right, I am going to make sure that these have a good fireplace. I have some options. Here we have my hovel, and I had a lot of fun making this, and before the camera was on, that roof came off with no trouble. There we are. If we look inside this, you can see there that I've done a fireplace, and I've put some little bits of kindling, little bits of wood underneath it. I've even got a little wood stack, if the light will show it, just on this side of the building. There we are. And I've done the chimney up, and I've put a little wooden dowel on top for a chimney stack. Now that's one idea. The second style is demonstrated in this rather awesome 2-story building that I did. Now, on the roof, you can see that there's a little stick. That marries up perfectly inside the first floor with another stick, which goes through the floor. And you guessed it, on the ground floor, that stick continues, and, oh, sorry, that stick continues, and you've got down there, this is actually a classic Bulgarian pechka. I have one of these in my gaming room. It is a fire which is designed to work very well with coals and that sort of thing. So it's a poor person's fire, basically. So those are two options I've got for putting fireplaces in here. I can make a little pechka type thing, which is a pretty traditional fire, or I could do a more solid looking stone built fireplace like in the first building. So that's the benefit of my thinking. What I'm now going to do is look at each of these buildings and work out what type of fireplace I want in each one, and then make it. And you can be sure that I will bring you along for that adventure. Next up on the Sarissa MDF buildings, I want to do some of the floors. Now I've decided on this one I'm going to leave the walls whitewashed so I don't have to paint them. And what I've done is I've printed this off on the internet. It's just some herringbone style flooring, and I'm going to stick this down inside. So I've carefully measured and then cut it using my guillotine so that it's absolutely square, and I'm now going to put a small film of glue on the back, on the bottom, and PVA glue, and then just let that sink down and glue in place. So I will show you what that looks like when it is done. That worked very well. That's now going to dry nicely. So the next thing to do is two things I'm going to do at the same time, and I'll point the camera in a slightly different direction. I'm going to paint the doors with a nice purple that I have here, and I'm going to paint the wooden details, which is around the windows. Let me just lift that a bit so you can see it. So around each of the windows, around the door, and also on this platform here and everywhere else that there's wood, including all these, I'm going to paint with this here, which is Umbra Natura, which I bought in Belgium a couple of years back, and it's still good against all the odds. So I'll get the camera set up, and I will probably put some music on while I'm doing that, and you can see how that works, how that looks. So first of all, I'm going to go in with the purple, which I've already shaken up, and I have some in the lid, which is how I like to use these bottles. And I'm going to use a fine brush, just a cheap brush from a supermarket, and very carefully get in and paint these doors. Okay, with that done, at least one coat, I'll be back for another coat I'm sure. I'm now going to get stuck in on the umber. So I have some on a plate here already. Just going to clean this brush. So I'll use the same one. And let's get started. So I'm not going to paint those. I'm just going to paint the outside here. Very carefully. I'm actually not sure how much of this is going to get on camera because it's quite an odd shaped building. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera off. There's no point in wasting battery, and I will show you what it looks like when I've finished. I'm rather pleased with how that's come out. I've done, as I mentioned, the purple. Let me move the light so that you can see a little bit better. So I've done the purple door, and I've done all of the wood, including on the platform there and the porch on the back. And what I've also done, which I probably should have done initially, is I've found the missing bit of the porch, which isn't glued on yet, and I've actually painted that as well. Now the things that are left to do on this is the brickwork along the bottom of this porch and along the bottom of the other porch and all the way around if I decide to do it all the way around. And then I'll be gluing this on, and then there are some final steps to go on which I'll be painting in grey, which aren't glued on yet. And then that building is pretty much done apart from the floors in these two rooms, which I need to get something printed out. But you can see that this long room is coming on nicely. And then I'll be thinking about chimneys. What I am doing now is more floors in the Sarissa buildings. I have purchased these from Scalemates and I'm printing them out. They were in HO scale, which is way too small for 28mm. It's actually nearer between 15 and 20mm. So what I'm doing is I'm actually scaling them up a little bit, printing them out separately, and then I'm going to cut them down on the guillotine and glue them in place in the same way as you saw me glue the other floor. So I'm not going to run through that process over and over and over again. I'm going to get the whole of the floors done for all of the buildings. That's my plan. And what I'll do is when I'm done, when they're all glued in place, then I'll show you what that looks like. But what I thought I would do is show you a couple of the textures I've gone for. So this is like a tiled floor. And then we've got a couple of almost carpeted floors. I mean, this one's almost clearly a carpeted floor. This one could be anything really. It'll just finish it off. We're not going to be going inside these buildings very often, but I don't like the idea of them just being bare MDF. So let's get started on that. So as you can see, we have floors inside the rooms, and they're looking quite nice. It's taken a lot longer than I wanted it to. It was quite fiddly at times, but maybe tomorrow I'll think it was worth it. But right now I wish I hadn't bothered. But that's how things go with hobbying, so just onwards and upwards. The final things to do on this is finish off the top of the wall, put the door in, and do the joins between each of the sheets of stuck on sandpaper. So very, very, very close to finish now on this one, which is very satisfying indeed. Once again, I forgot to turn my microphone on, so you've got post-beard. What I have here are some cardboard brick sections which will be able to go around the base of this building and will hopefully also secure in the sandpaper, which has loosened a little bit in places. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be painting it with red, and then afterwards I will be sticking it on using PVA, and also I will then look to do what I'm pointing at the moment, which is the top of the wall, because I'm getting very, very close to finishing this. And the other thing that I'm about to work on is the doors. So I have this new gadget. I spent about 5-10 minutes before filming this making sure all of those little crocodile clips are actually securely fastened. This is going to be used for my paint airbrush, but it also is very useful for this, where you want to paint the whole of something, you don't really want to be touching it. So I'm putting the brown umber, which I have started to use a lot for doing wood, and I'm going to put that on the one side, and I'm also going to put it on the other. So what I'll do now is I will now speed up, and I will be back when this boring bit's done. That's done, so now we're going to grab the nice rich red, and I'm going to paint that on over the top of all of these sections of brick. As you can see, unfortunately some of them fell out in the packet, so they're loose, which is making it a little bit more difficult for me to paint. I do get some red all over my fingers, but that's fine. The paint does go on quite thick in places, but it has turned translucent when it's dried, so that's actually okay. I briefly thought about going over this with some white paint. Here I'm showing off how it went on a bit thick on the small one, and you can still see the black lines on the other one, but that actually did sort itself out. So I'm just going to paint all of these with the red paint. I was thinking about going over the mortar with white, but I decided against it, but you'll see that in a minute. So I'm going to go to fast up again, and I'll be back a bit later. while I'm thinking about that, and this time with the microphone turned on, go beard, I'm going to do the brick colour that is around the base of this building, which I'd forgotten about. And I'm going to use the same paint. So this time, I will again put some music on, and you can again enjoy that. And I will again just go over lightly. So I'll see you at the end. Shouldn't take me too long. Okay, there you are. That didn't take very long at all. Now what I have noticed while I've been doing this is that I actually missed some of the wood along the front. So I'm going to grab a slightly thinner brush from over here, try and find one, that'll do. And I'm going to use this, which hasn't quite gone off yet, thank goodness. I'm just going to touch up along the front here because actually that should be wood along there. There we are. Done. Right, so that building, apart from the two front rooms here with no flooring, is pretty much done. I will be gluing on the front porch next and then leaving it. So while the camera's running, why don't I do that? I've decided what to do on top of these walls, and in the meantime I've also glued on the brick patterned paper card, which isn't sticking all that well with PVA, so I may need to go over that again, but for now that's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make use of some of the spare card from the kit, and I'm going to cut that out and glue it on, and it's going to be as simple as that. So I will get that done and I will bring you back when it is completed. I think I'm going to paint it white or grey or something like that. That was easy. I've glued them on and clamped them because you can never have too many clamps, as you well know. Next up, what I'm going to be doing is working on finishing off this one, which is also very, very close to being done. What I've noticed is that the porches, which I was planning on potentially leaving loose, are actually warping a little bit. They're very long and thin, and to be honest, I don't think that there's any real need to keep them off. I think it looks fine with them on, and it's certainly you can still access and put your miniatures in and move them around. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be gluing those on just with PVA, and what you'll notice as well since the last time is I've stuck the steps on. I've decided to go for the same brick red because I think it looks really nice. So I'm just going to glue those on, and then pretty much that might even be me done for the evening. I think it's getting a bit late again now. I've had a cracking time, really good time here. Oh, I forgot to show you, I also did the doors on this one back here. Let me just quickly pick it up. I can do it without damaging anything. I can, and what you can see is doors. Look, they open and everything. It's amazing. I'll be back when they're glued on, or not. I'll be back when I'm back. Taken a little while off these, doing other things, focusing on other builds, but now I'm absolutely determined I'm going to get them finished because they're so very, very close. There's a couple of processes to do on each of these two buildings. On this one, the only thing left to do is to finish off the top of this wall. So I'm going to paint that grey and call it done, and I'll be happy with that. On this one, there's a little bit more to be done. First of all, I've got to do the slabs. So what I'm going to be doing on this is I have a sharp tool. And let me zoom that in a bit so you can see maybe. There we are. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be scoring the gap between each of the slabs with the sharp tool. Because what I did was I stuck some card on here because I wasn't happy with the slabs that were there before. So just by drawing this tool like so, I can create the gaps for the slabs, and then I can paint that grey. And there's one on the back as well. Ta-da! Which I'll do the same. There we are. So I'll be able to paint that grey and these grey at the same time. And the final thing to be done here, apart from painting the horse, which I will get on with later, is I want to have this stable door half open. So what I'm going to do is cut it in half. I'm going to glue the bottom half back in, and then I'm going to glue the top half open outwards so that I can then have said horse, which is here, and I can have that horse painted up and stood with its head poking out over the stable door. So I'm going to get my paint and I'm going to apply grey paint, dark grey paint to these areas, and then I'm going to cut this and glue it in, and I will show you what it looks like when it is done. Well, that was nice and quick. You can see that the top of this wall is now painted, and I'm pretty sure that I'm done with this one. For now at least, I may do more. And on here I have painted the steps. I also realised that I hadn't put these porches on, so as well as sticking the actual supports in, I've also gone back and done some the roofs with the shingles, which will need to be spray painted and all sorts of stuff. So there'll be a day or two off finished. And then around on this side, you can see the door for the stable is open halfway. Whee! So I'm going to let that all dry. It's all still quite wet with the glue, and I'll come back and finish this one off, and I'll have a look at the other one and see whether it's finished. I think actually there is a little bit to do on this, thinking about it. The gaps between the sheets, I want to do something, and I think I'm going to do it with brick. So I'm going to do some brick style paper. I'll find some or print some off or make some, and then when that's done, that will get stuck on these gaps. However, that won't be done very soon, and at the moment it's playable at least. So yeah, good progress there. So the last couple of processes on this. The first of the last couple of processes is going to be to paint the doors. Now I've decided that I want these to be done in green, and so I've got my nice rich green here, which I'm going to use, and I'm just going to, again, having shaken it, just going to use the paint that gathers in the lid, and I'm just going to paint these doors, which is not going to take me very long at all. I might need a smaller brush, so I might well go and get a smaller brush. I say go, reach for one right next to me. There's one, that'll do. It might take a couple of coats because it's just quite a transparent paint, which I really like because it means it doesn't go over the top when you don't want it to. But it does mean that you do get quite a lot of brush strokes in it. So the other thing that's to be done is the horse, which is going to be standing with its head out here, which is on a painting handle right here. So what I'm going to do is, while that's drying and before I put another coat on later, I'm going to start painting up this horse. Now I've decided that I want this horse to be a very beautiful horse, like a piebald. So it's going to be a creamy white all over, and then it's going to have patches of like a chestnut or a reddy brown on it. So I'll get myself set up on that, and I think I will invite you along for that painting session because I'm looking forward to it. I've not painted any miniatures for a while again. So yeah, give me a minute and I'll be back. Okay, I'm set. I have the horse, I have my paints I've picked, I have a roll of paper for cleaning my brushes, I have my brushes to hand as well, and I have some water. So we can go, and I'm going to try and do this on camera as best as I can. So first of all, I'm going to be using Vallejo Off-White, which is 70820. There we are, 70820 Off-White. And I'm going to paint over the entire horse with that, because then, after that, I'm going to put on some Saddle Brown, which is 70940, and that's what's going to be my second colour. So I'm just going to do two colours on this horse, and hopefully that's going to look very nice. So hopefully I'll remember to keep this in shot. It is the hardest thing in the world to remember to keep things in shot. If you haven't done this yet on camera, then you won't know just how difficult that is. Now, I'm not the greatest painter, so I won't do this at real time. I will chuck some music on for you. There we are, that's one coat done. So I'm going to let that dry, which won't take long, and I'll come back later on and do a second coat, and I'll invite you along for that as well. This is getting excitingly close to completed. What I'm now about to do is glue on the porches, which is going to be very, very quick, but I thought I'd invite you along anyway because I like talking to you. So just a little bit of PVA along the tops. There we are. These I sprayed with the same colour, nut brown. Yep, just make sure that sits in, which it should do. If I can do this right. I had them sitting in before when it was off camera. There we are, that's sitting in now, good. And then we'll do the back. And then it's a case of finishing off the horse, and the whole thing's done on this building, which is pretty exciting. The inside I'm leaving bare because I haven't yet decided what to do. I'm thinking of a rush type floor in this building, as it is a little bit run down. It's not quite as pretty as the other one. It's got knackered roofs, as you can see from this. So I'm thinking of a rush floor, and I've got an idea of how to do that, but I need to let it percolate in my mind before I actually try to film it. So I'll probably finish this and then come back when I'm ready and do it then. So I'll let that to dry. We'll go back to doing the horse, which has had a second coat of the white on it. So that's now ready for me to attempt to paint the piebald on with some saddle brown, and Angela suggests I put some burnt red in as well to make it a little bit richer, so I'll probably try that. So when the second coat on that is dried, I will be jumping back onto the horse. Hello, voiceover beard here again. Once more, I forgot to turn my microphone on. So I'm about to paint this horse, and I'm using saddle brown, which as you see is 70940, and burnt red, a mix of those two colours, which was suggested to me by Angela. She knows her colours, and I can tell you what, she was absolutely right. So I give this a good shake, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint it quite simply. I'm not that good a painter, as I'm sure you've noticed, and I do have an image on my phone which I was using to guide myself, and yeah, I mixed up those two colours and put them on the horse. So I'll now hand you back to real-time beard. And there you have it. I've painted a pinto.
as they say, not a Punto, that's a car, but a Pinto is this type of horse. And I'm quite pleased with that. I've not tried to go too over the top, just subtly. And I did do it, as I said, I did a little mix of the saddle brown and the burnt red, and it came out beautifully. It was much better than my original idea. So thank you, Angela, you're a star. I'll let that dry and then come in and do the eyes, and then that will be finished and ready to go on the diorama. Yay! We are on to the very final step on this particular Sarissa building, which is gluing my little horse in place. And I'm going to use Luke's terrain glue because I think that's going to be the most secure way of doing it. So I'm going to stick a little bit of the terrain glue on the bottom of the hooves. This being latex based, I'm hoping that it'll be strong enough. Of course, I'm not actually going to be gluing the roof in place, so if the horse does get a bit loose, then I can always get in to fix it. But there we are, a little bit of latex glue, and he's going to be standing there sticking his head out through the door, and saying hello to the world. So that can now be left to go off. And then that particular building, until I've worked out how to do the rushes, as I've said in the main building, but I'm not in a hurry for that. I'm not in a rush. Until the rushes are done, when I come to do them, I think that's pretty much finished. Great success. So almost against my better judgment, I'm going to try to make use of this Green Stuff World roller with this very low quality clay to see whether I can roll out some upright brick partitions to stick along the wall of the Sarissa building. So I might use I'm going to try and use that thickness. So we'll put the ends on, and then we'll see whether we can do this without it all falling apart and sticking and being rubbish, because this clay has been in storage for way too long. So let's give this a go. Hey, look at all that there. Ridiculous. I need a better tray to be doing this on because it just sticks. Right, so I'm going to tidy up, get the model over and attempt to stick that in place. I shouldn't have shut that back. I'm going to have to open that all out to wash it now. That was careless. So I'm going to give a quick tidy up and then I'll be back with the next segment. I really do have no idea if this is going to work, but we're going to give it a try anyway, because what the hell. So here we have these gaps, and here we have some brick. And what I'm going to attempt to do is cut out and stick on uprights of brick across these gaps. So, first of all, we're going to get ourselves a sharp pick instrument, and we're going to take this, and we're going to attempt to cut in a straight line. It's going to be quite hard with that pick because it's all wonky and horrible. That one's better. We're going to attempt to cut in a straight line down through the clay. There we are. Now we don't have to have it too narrow because, well, we can have it as wide as we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure quickly roughly how high. I think it's 8. Grab my trusty tape measure. It's 5. So if I can get 5 centimeters, which is perfectly fine, so I can cut the bottom of this damaged bit off, which wants to fall apart anyway. So we can cut there, and then I'll offer it up against 5 centimeters. There we are, and cut there. Okay, so now we've got roughly the right height in this corner here. So now I might try and split that relatively thinly.
This could go very wrong. I might actually look for the correct tool because I'm not really using the correct tool. I have a bunch of tools which are designed for this. That's better, see? Get the right tool for the job. There we are. So we have ourselves a bit of an upright or two or three of bricks. There we are. So now what we'll do is stand this on its end, which could be fun because it's got the steps at that side. So we'll do this side because that's going to be easier for me to do. Actually, you can't see that on the camera, so let me just raise that a bit. Okay, so now that we have these brick sections, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to glue them in place. So I'm going to run a bead of PVA and then carefully lift one of these using this spatula tool. Ha! And it broke. But that's fine, I think. And set that in place and kind of smudge it in. It's a bit thick. I could probably have done with making these a little thinner. However, for my first attempt, I think that's okay. I'll just smudge them in at the bottom. We'll see how it looks. We'll see how it works out. That's what they look like at the moment. They'll probably stick and they'll probably dry on and they'll probably look okay. So what I'm going to do is the rest of the building. So I'll be back to you when I've finished doing that. I'm going to turn the camera off because I'm a little bit constrained trying to stay in shot. And I'll be back when I've finished doing this. After feeling quite depressed is probably the wrong word, probably too strong a word, but quite upset about this, I'm back to it now. And I have made some more of the bricks, but I've done it right this time with a little bit of learning, or a lot of learning since the last attempt. And so what I'm going to try to do, this might not work at all, and I might be back to where I started from, but I'm going to attempt to trim down and glue on some sections where I want it. So I have my cutting ruler and I have a sharp blade, and what I'm going to try to do is cut down, so it needs to be at least 6 centimeters really. So we're going to try and find a bit that's at least 6 centimeters long, which that bit is there. So I'm going to try and cut down there. There we are. How about that? Ah, crumbles. Now this is very, very thin, this particular bit of plaster, so of air dry clay. So that's probably why it's not going to work very well. So let me try another bit. This may just be a bad idea and I may need to do this completely again with the idea that was suggested to me, which is make it on the bits of the correct dimensions, and that probably is a better idea. However, that's worked okay. So now let's try and do another section here. I'm only going to do one of these on camera because it's very, very awkward standing like this trying to do this in shot. And just with multiple thin, multiple gentle slices. Cut there. Oh, that worked okay. There we are. So we've got a section now, and that is going to glue very nicely there. So we'll cut the bottom off. Find 6 centimeters. There we are. Cut there. Ha-ha! And then that might need to have a little bit more than 6 cut. Let's do it to that brick. That is okay. There we are. Dunk. And that is perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, I'll zoom that in a little bit for you so you can see. I'm going to go around the whole of the building and I'm going to stick them on, cut them out and stick them on like that, and I will come back and show you what it looks like when it is done. And so finally, and I mean finally, I have finished the 3 Sarissa buildings in 28mm. It has taken months to do these, and there's no really good reason for that, apart from the fact that I was a little lazy and I got a bit distracted, and then I got a little bit down when I had the failure with the air-dried clay on the bricks, and so I left them for another couple of days. But I am very pleased with how they look, and it has been a very big learning curve, and I've tried a lot of new techniques on it, and that's always worthwhile. I started them before I started the channel. That tells you how long ago it is. So that's 14 weeks, 15 weeks nearly. What I'll do, I'm going to point the camera down and show you each of the finished items, and then this video will be over, and I will do my traditional now good photographs in the photo booth so that you can see in detail each of these 3 buildings. But yes, I've finished them, yes! First of all, we have, I think this was actually the first building I started on. This is a Roman style building with a courtyard, obviously. It's got the opening doors. And this is the one where I made the big mistake. There's so many mistakes to point out on this. With these tiles, with these slates. And I glued them down shiny side up, and then no paint would adhere. So I've done a black spray, and then a grey wash to make it look a little like slates, and I hope that it does. I think it looks good from a distance, and I'm happy enough. The other thing which didn't work very well on this one was the brick effect, which is the thing that I've finished most recently. However, you can see that does now look okay. I'm pretty happy with it, and definitely it's going to be sufficient. But there's a lesson learned there. What I'm most pleased about, I think, is this wooden attachment. That's really worked well. I'm making use of the wood stain, which just looks brilliant. And then inside each of the buildings, we have different types of flooring. So each of the rooms has a different floor, and that also worked quite well. They're not quite as well as I wanted to. I think really I should be printing onto slightly more substantial paper for that, and potentially using a laser printer rather than an inkjet, because a lot of the colours ran, but it still looks good. And that is going to be a really nice building, quite a nice centrepiece for any board. And I'm looking forward to playing on it, because you can obviously navigate around and come upstairs, and there's all sorts of shooting can happen out of these windows. So that's the first building, and I'm pretty pleased with that. And I think that the tile colour, particularly the roof, looks well. Next up, we have this absolutely beautiful building, and I really like this. Is probably my favourite. Well, I say that. I think probably the next one's my favourite. I'm actually really pleased with all 3. But I love the way the colours have worked on this. I love the way that yellow and the red, it just is a very striking building. Now, the inside of this isn't finished, because I want to think about what I'm going to do with the front rooms. However, you can see that I do have this main room's done, and that's really good. But the thing that I really like about this is the entrance, and that porch looks brilliant, and the doors, the purple doors, obviously, are really, really nice. And then when you turn it round, the back looks great as well, and it looks really good with the purple doors as well. So this is another really striking building, another one where the roof has worked just, again, far better than I thought it would. These Sarissa tiles that you can buy, the card tiles, they're really worthwhile. And the colours, this is with thanks to Angela, because she helped me out with the colours on this one. The colours on this roof are brilliant. That two-tone, it just works really well. So that's another one I'm very, very pleased with, and it's going to look really good on the tabletop. And now we come to what probably is actually my favourite, the hovel, or the old farm, or whatever you want to call it, with the sheep and the geese and the little horse sticking his head out of the stable. And obviously inside there's, you can get inside in here, and you can get inside the main building. And at the back we've got the little wood shed with the wood store inside of it, which I had a lot of fun doing as well. This building has been great fun, and it's the first one that I did the plaster effect on, and did such a good job on it, and it just looks great. It just looks great. I'm really, really pleased with that building. That's probably going to get the most use, I think, because it's the most utility. That and the previous one, the yellow building, are going to get the most use. I think the big Roman style villa is just a bit too bulky, and it may struggle to get onto the table. So there you are. What a epic build, and what an epic video this is going to be. Probably 2 or even 3 build with me's. I'll have to look how much it is when I start to edit it down. But I've learned so much, and I hope that you have enjoyed watching and learning, and maybe shouting at the screen and saying, why are you being such an idiot? Don't do that, do this. And that's what it's about. And if you have those sorts of things, and if you want to give me any ideas or feedback, then please chuck them in the comments below. I'm always up for hearing from you and for learning. I mean, how else do we learn but sharing ideas and failing and learning together?
It has taken me so long to finish that edit. It's about a month since I started it, but hey, at least I got there. Thank you very much for watching. That did turn out to be slightly longer than I expected, but I have left this as the final video because, yeah, I'm done with editing these now. They were really good buildings to make, and I did them a lot differently to how they look on the Sarissa website. I'll pop some links to those products in the description below, so that if you fancy your hand at one of these, please feel free to send me a picture if you can, and I'd love to see what you get done. I learned a lot in this build, a huge amount. It spanned the entire career of BeardClipper as a channel so far. Began this before I even had the idea of doing a channel. And so yeah, it's really fascinating to see just what I've learned in terms of video editing and presenting on the camera, as well as in terms of hobby skills. For example, the use of the rollers, where I screwed up quite badly the first attempt, then had a lot of help and a lot of wonderful people in the community giving me great advice, and then that snapped me out of the doldrums on this build and I was able to finish it off. So I'll stop muttering and chuntering now. I'll look forward to maybe hearing from all of you in the comments. If you have anything to say, please do drop them below. I do love to hear from you, and hopefully this has inspired you and given you some confidence to give it a go and try some bigger builds and just see what happens. You can have some beautiful terrain on the tabletop, and it doesn't take a huge amount of skill because I can do it. I'll sign off as always by saying don't forget to subscribe and ding the bell when you do, so that you're told whenever one of my videos goes live. And I will thank you so very much for watching BeardClipper.